You can go ahead.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Jescii. I'll be your chair for today's high school grand finals. Congratulations for reaching this far. And yeah, before we start, I'll like my panel to introduce themselves as well. Let's start with Abdul.
Hello, everybody. Making it this far. I'm Judge Abdul. I'll be your panel for this round. And yeah, let's have a fun debate and good luck.
Aliyah.
Oh, um, hello everyone. Congratulations for making it to high school's grand finals. I'm Judge Aliyah and wish you guys the best of luck.
Del.
Hello everyone, congratulations for making it this far. I'm Judge Dan and yeah, have fun and good luck.
Denz.
Hello everyone, I'm Judge Denz. Congratulations for making it this far. Good luck everyone.
Francis.
Hello everyone, my name is Francis. Congrats on making it this far and good luck on the round.
And Mario.
Hi everyone, good luck debaters and congratulations for making it this far. Have fun.
All right. Thank you for that, panelists. Uh, Before we actually start, just a couple of reminders. Please time yourselves and your opponents so you know when to take and raise PUI and also to avoid being over time. And if there are any sensitive things you're going to mention in your speech, please flag a trigger warning before the entire speech rather than actually saying it before the word. And I ask you guys to also be respectful in raising PUIs to avoid badgering. Start the debate. Debating on the motion, this House would not blow up the other ferry. To start a debate, calling on the Prime Minister. Here.
Hi everyone, name's Jian. Before I start, I'd like to ask first if I'm quite audible.
Loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. I'll just set my timer real quick. Okay, I set my timer. Introductions. Hi everyone, name's Jian. Pronoun she, her. Do I do shout outs? I don't know. I'll just shout out to everyone and fasting and everyone because I think I'll make this quick. Um, PUI PUI will be at any time, so long as it's not the protected time. So preferably from closing for engagement, hopefully. And I think I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. When the world and system puts and creates a pedestal for the people to choose between yourself and the other both means other people who are labeled as such and such to appear something as morally right or to appear that it's something that is just, you only create a system where you normalize people compromising each others without, for example, choosing themselves, without acknowledgement that they also have humanness between themselves. Because the system that we have creates and pressurizes the people to turn back to each other. What happens in the current status quo is that there's presence of dehumanizing people just because they're convict, just because, for example, these people come from a certain background, right? This means to say them that there's a current existing of loss of essence of humanity because there's lack of apathy and understanding between the people. So when they, for example, heard the word convict, they're going to automatically detonate that bomb just because they think that there's no redemption at all, right? Because I think that let's go towards the objective definition and how this debate should also revolve. Because this is not entirely an actor motion, but we also have to acknowledge on how this entirely affects, for example, the narrative between the humanness of people, right? Because one, the actor here is simple, us human, right? A person defined by humanity, a person driven by empathy, a person driven also by emotions and also understanding, right? That's what makes us human, right? But second, these convicts, one thing that I would like to clarify before the whole entire opposition tries to nitpick us and also pushes us a bigger burden, one thing for sure is that the nuance between criminals and convicts is that these convicts are allegedly. What do you mean by allegedly? Just they're, for example, they're convicted, or they're just taken, for example, towards court, right? It does mean then that these people are have allegedly and not yet proven. Why is this an important framing? Because this is for how we, for example, determine on how we can actually actualize these people, right? Because op cannot debate and say that, hey, they're criminals, so it's just justified to save yourself because there's no saving grace. But let's go towards them on how we, for example, how we define convicts. These convicts are people who are at a systemic disadvantage, who are who are in the marginalized, because these convicts are all convicts because of systemic imbalances. They're not usually the rich. Take note, usually they're not usually the rich, because the rich have the privilege to, for example, out themselves towards privileges, right? To not have accountability. But secondly, even if they're evil, we'll try to prove later that it's still humanness and the benefit will still accrue at the end of the day. This is not an attempt to glamorize the people of the convict, but it's on how we frame the narrative between the people, the philosophy of the people, on how they can actually think twice before they have actions that will have long-term effects, right? Because first, then, our first principal case is that where we can better give humanity, or where we better value the life, because this is a moral obligation, meaning to say that you have this person or the actor have the incentive to actually understand these people, talking about these convicts are victim of the justice system, because the justice system that we have are inherently anti-poor, which means to say that it's rooted towards the power inequality and the power towards the elite. Well, they have the wealth inequality that allows for the rich to bail, for example, accountability, meaning to say that the most people who are convicted are people who doesn't have privilege enough. So they're still convicts, right? This is an important framing, because this is how we assess on a timeline basis that we should normalize, remove the lack of apathy between these people. We remove the dehumanizing people or label just because they come from a certain background, right? Because on timeline, why do we want to, for example, keep the humanity? Because it's a moral obligation. We value life. That's what makes us human, right? But it's in terms of telling us, even if opposition is trying to tell us that it's going to be for survivability, there's a difference between self-defense as well as an active choice to actively detonate that, right? Because it means then, if you're self-defense, they're trying to actively harm you, but they're not. They have the active choice, right? Meaning to say that you do not have the guarantee that these convicts might actually also bomb you too, right? Or press that button. Here's the thing, even if on our worst case that we actually died, one thing that we want to sure is that we want to preserve the humanness of the people. So if, for example, we die, for example, at least the convict will now have a chance to reactualize that this person spread humanity. So I have to reflect on that. So I have to redact on that, because I now made a mistake, and that this person is something that did this for humanity, right? So it means to say that at least it spreads a narrative that you have to counterbalance the apathy that is still existing, meaning to say that you have now, for example, a better outcome even in our worst case scenario. But on our best case scenario, that everyone, for example, dies because we did not press, it means to say that what we're trying to achieve is that we want to normalize and spread empathy. We do not want the system to define our choices just because we are put against a disadvantage or oppression between these people, right? But second, then, we want the systemic reforms where the people normalize not to kill people each other just because there's a labeled or dehumanizing for a stigma between these convicts, right? What we want to achieve is where the type of system where we cannot be exploited anymore, because the people will now not kill each other, for example, just for the sake, for example, of living, right? Because on timeline analysis, then we do get the idea that, for example, even if we live, for example, the guilt here is very, very, for example, detrimental. Why? Because it's an active choice. You did not do it for self-defense, but you did it because you're going to be put on a pressure by the system that we have. Because I will live in a burden that the actions that I did is still morally wrong. But B, for example, if I killed, for example, these convicts might have also been innocent who are struggling between the systemic oppression that we have. Meaning to say that the guilt I have will be detrimental toll even if I live on, and it's something that it's going to be harder because it only, for example, conforms to the system that we have, where we were we conform to the systemic that we have, where we do not acknowledge these people or spread understanding and sympathy between these people. Because notice that humans are, for example, inherently towards their growth. They are defined by redemptions on how we de-actualize themselves, right? It normalizes what we were trying to achieve is how to where and when normalize that these people, we have to understand them because they're also victims of the system that we have, of the system that I also put. So the best case scenario here is not where the goal here is not where we can live, but what the actions will do and how it will spread to the narrative. And we think that the government side is a better world because we want to not conform to the society or systemic reforms, to not turn each other, to not remove the sympathy between what makes us human. And we also want to allow for growth between these people. We want to spread understanding that just because you come from a certain background or you were labeled as something, you are still allowed for that humanity. Because at the end of the day, there's uncertainty between actions that this convict will also press that button or whether, for example, they would not. So that's what makes this debate very impactful, is where you can influence the other people that, hey, you know what, the system is inherently pushing us to fight together, but it's something that we have to keep our humanity, because that's what makes us human. And it's also a safety net for the inherent anti-poor justice system that we have, right? It's very important because it's also acknowledged the systemic reforms, or we can actually acknowledge where we can better our system that we have. And we think that this is a better impact because even if, for example, everyone dies, it's the message that will live on.
All right, thank you for that fine speech, Prime Minister. Now to open the case for opposition, calling on the Leader of Opposition. Here.
Hello, am I audible?
Audible but kind of echoey.
Oh, wait. How about now? Oh, wait. Hello? Is this bad still?
Yeah, I think that's good.
That's good? Okay. Can I set up my timer for a bit? Sorry. So hi, my name is Ibang Tayang. My pronouns are she, her, and I would like POIs through voice, please. And with that, I will begin my speech in three. Three, two, one. In a situation where death is inevitable, we have the moral duty to minimize total harm. Some clarification for this. A convict is a person officially found guilty of a crime by a court and typically serving a prison sentence. As a verb, convict actually means to prove or declare someone guilty, often through trial and plea. And now let me start on with my rebuttals. So government is romanticizing a future that never comes. They talk about convicts reactualizing, reflecting, and spreading humanity, but none of that happened if both boats explode. Dead people do not reform, and dead people do not challenge systematic oppression. Their entire argument depends on survival, yet their choice guarantees like universal death. Second, they say that pressing the button normalizes dehumanization, but that is false because we are not killing people because of a label. We are acting because harm is inevitable. And this is not a stigma-based violence. This is actually something that's forced harm minimization under coercion. The label convict is not why we press the button, but certainly they also exaggerate guilt. Yes, survivors may feel guilty, but the guilt within survival is morally preferable to everyone being dead. Moral discomfort does not outweigh the actual human lives. If we refuse to act just to avoid feeling guilty, that is prioritizing psychological comfort over like preventing like a lot of deaths. Four, they also say that this reinforces a violent system. No, the system we reinforce is not where in tragic dilemmas like people minimize harm. Government's world reinforces fatalism, where people just allow maximum destruction to preserve moral symbolism, and that is not reform. That is not something that we need. It just produces more deaths. And finally, even in their best case scenario of government where refusing to press the button supposedly sends a powerful message, like a moral message, and inspires people to become better, that argument still fails for three reasons. Firstly, the message this does not not live on if everyone dies. Dead people again cannot reform society, and dead people cannot reflect on empathy. Dead people cannot challenge like systematic injustice, and a moral symbol that results in zero survivors produces no long-term reform. No one will talk about this when all of them are dead. Secondly, moral progress does not require universal self-sacrifice. So societies have become more humane by reducing harm, not by maximizing it. If anything, choosing to save many lives as possible reinforces the value of human life. Government's model teaches us that moral purity matters more than actual survival, and that is actually not compassion at all. Third, their message, quote unquote message, comes at the cost of preventable lives. You are asking innocent civilians, possibly children even, to die just for a symbolic stance. That is not reform. That is actually imposing on people who never consented to it. So even at their best case, they trade real, breathing human lives for a hypothetical moral narrative, and we choose the world where people are still alive to improve it. Now let me start on with my framing. Again, if we do nothing, everyone dies. Choosing not to act doesn't make you innocent, it makes you responsible for a preventable greater tragedy. This is the rule of utilitarianism. When forced into tragedy, we have to choose the outcomes with less loss of lives. Morality actually demands us to reduce the suffering when we can. When we are ordinary civilians on a ferry rigged with explosives, another ferry holds like the convicted criminals, and each boat has a detonator. So if neither of us presses, both of it explodes, and if we press first, the other ferry explodes and our survive. We also take into account that the other boat have convicts inside of it, and it is very likely that they would press the detonator because it is seen in the past, and it is very likely that because they have done bad things in the past just to survive or for their own good. So even if God will say that there's a moral difference between killing and letting people die, we say that in this scenario that distinction collapses because we know three things. You know with uncertainty that both boats will explode. You know that you have the power to prevent one boat from dying, and refusing to act is knowingly allowing preventable deaths. So when you have the agency to refuse to use it, that is morally significant. Like for example, if a doctor refuses to give medicine that would save half of the patients, we don't call that moral purity. That is actually something like negligence, because the context of the situation is that this is not a coercive scenario. We did not create this dilemma. We did not plant the bombs. So the only variable we have here, or the harm will happen regardless, and the only variable we have here is how many people will survive, because our goal is not to justify killing, because we want a fewer lives lost, protection of innocent lives, and even so how is this likely? This is extremely likely because civilians would press the button and people would prioritize their families, and humans instinctively minimize harm. Opposition aligns with government asks for saint-like or self-sacrifice, but that is just unrealistic. So now let me start on with my first argument. The utilitarianism and our moral duty to minimize harm. When harm is again unavoidable, morality requires us to minimize the total loss of life. We are not choosing between killing and not killing. We are choosing between lesser deaths or greater deaths. Morality cannot demand that we allow maximum destruction just to preserve moral purity. So if harm is inevitable, the moral superior choice is that to save the one that creates more life saves. So is it really a choice if you are coerced to do it? So even if God claims that there's a difference between killing and letting people die, we know that both boats will explode. So let me give you an example here. Imagine a doctor, two groups will die. The doctor can only save one group. If she refuses to choose both, if she refuses to choose and both die, we don't call that irresponsible, because in this case refusing to press the button is not innocence. It is choosing, it's just making you kill more people. The second argument then would be, it is likely that people will choose their own, saving themselves and their family, because at the core of this debate stands we have a philosophy that recognizes special obligations. You owe more to your child than your stranger. You owe more to those in your direct care. You are physically present within innocent civilians, your loved ones, and people relying on you. You have a stronger duty to protect those that you are directly responsible for. And because refusing to press the button means you allow your family and fellow civilians to die, to protect abstract moral consistency. Even if God says, I don't want blood in my own hands. But morality is not about feeling clean. It's about making hard decisions. And when you accept guilt, when you bear psychological burden, and when you act to prevent greater catastrophe. If we adapt God's framing then. We normalize people who have passive fatalism. We refuses to intervene in crises and moral paralysis in emergencies. In real scenarios, like for example, military defense must happen. So if your moral system cannot function under crisis, then it's useless. We also recognize that convicts have violated rights of others when judged through due process and temporarily lost certain prosecution. This doesn't make them worthless, but when we are forced to choose, protecting innocent civilian lives carries stronger urgency than protecting those who are already proven to have harmed others. And with all of those reasons given, I'm proud to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you for that fine speech, Leader of Opposition. Now to continue the case for government bench, calling on the Deputy Prime Minister. Here.
Just a few seconds. I'll just get my timer. Thank you. Hi everyone. I'm Najera Balindong. She her. Before starting my speech, I'd like just a couple of shout outs. A shout out to my Tribune's family, to YDS, to Chate, to my partner, to my family, to basically just everyone who were always there for me. I really, really owe everything to you guys. Yeah, shout out then to Salim. Okay, I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1, go. Responses first, because I felt like the entire opposition clearly mischaracterizes my first speaker, right? First, let's go to their first response on, hey, my partner is actually romanticizing criminals. Wrong. This is something that's wrong because you look at the info slide. It says that they're just convicts. It doesn't automatically mean that they're criminals or they did atrocious things, because at the end of the day, they're innocents in there. They're also guilty people in there. So in there, but in there, right? Therefore, in there, right? But secondly, on let's engage on their best case, right? Because they best case, right? First, what if we actually all die? This is still something that is false, because the motion doesn't say that the entire population of the world is in the two ferries. Therefore, it's safe to assume that this is, since this is a also THW motion, there's also existing people outside of the boat. For example, probably here in the Philippines, and they still exist, right? But secondly, it's still fine, because at least we don't override our principles and morals over our survivability. They even, but thirdly, they even like told us about, hey, people have a notion to rely on their instincts of saving their loved ones. This is exactly the reason why this is not a value judgment debate. Because if it is so, then there's no debate, right? This is a THW, right? But a second, but overall, on their more like main argument, right, on choosing the lesser evil. First, the response here is simple. First, you do not have the authority to kill, even if it's the least evil thing to do here in the earth, on earth, right? Because it's not like euthanasia, where where these people did not outright tell you to kill them, right? Sorry for the word, to kill them, right? To kill them, right? Therefore, you do not have the authority, for example, to detonate it, even if it's on for your survivability, right? But secondly, let's extend on the stakeholder. If you did detonate it, you are not the only person in this world to have loved ones. So those people on those ferries probably also have their children, their families, their for example, that are waiting for them to come back home. But because you detonated it, you did not give them right to come back to their families, for example, especially if they're the innocent ones, right? This is also the most subject to injustice. Injustice, right? But secondly, on social contact theory, they did crimes, but that doesn't give us right to remove their rights to live at the end of the day. But secondly, we do not have the legitimate authority to to execute them, guilty or innocent at the end of the day. Because on ethics, is it really worth it to press the button? First, what the question here is, what kind of person will you become if I really do it? This proves three things. First, it proves that you let your survivability override your sense of justice. But second, it proves that you're a coward instead of fighting for what's real courage, right? At the end of the day, right? You do not, thirdly, you do not want your loved ones to be dead. uh, Coming from a member, there's a huge guilt aftermath, which means to say that it's, even if it's on survivability, it's still intentional murder under the eyes of the law. Therefore, it's not defense mechanism. On timeline, if we do survive, what will happen? First, it's easier now to choose ourselves over other things. There, like for example, justice and inequality. We choose ourselves over justice and equality because we've once done it, right? But secondly, on the quality of people who survives, if I really survive and I detonated, this is also me engaging on the most charitable, becoming the most charitable to opposition. What will happen to the quality of people if I really survive and detonated? First, there's no assurance that you deserve to live when you just unalive a boat on hundreds of people because you took advantage of your situational power. This is something that is bad because this is where it enters the normalization of survival based murder that destroys our society. And long term, this is where we consistently uphold to our sense of humanity in a world that constantly puts us in a pedestal, right? This is also like further deepening this round, and engaging on a defense mechanism and survivability case that is probably gonna come from the closing houses. Even if it's a defense mechanism, it's still harmful in long term because an extension, the world where a world where survival justifies preemptive violence is going to be normalized. It's seen in our leaders right now, like Trump and Netanyahu, on their preemptive self-defense against Iran. We struck. They told on these social media platforms that we struck first because they pose existential crisis, existential threat. This, when Iran is outrightly not using their nukes for war. This is also where propagandas like what's happening in our world right now is gonna continue to proliferate because we choose to override our survivability. Now it will become a norm to even kill people. It will appear on warfare, policing, national security, and even on counterterrorism, where it's easier now to scapegoat because it's for the sense of survivability. This huge moral shift is so bad because it posits for a more chaotic future where people's stances no longer uphold humanity preservation, but they just outright just want to defend themselves and become selfish people at the end of the day. Let me push this further so CG can't extend, right? There's gonna be institutionalization of conditional humanity, where in extreme scenarios, morality bends to survival. This is bad because crises are constant. We have war, climate disasters, political instability, everything happening all at once, right? Now, if we choose survivability, choose survivability that actually overrides over principles, you make the world a dystopian, like world, for example, like on parallel, like Hunger Games, where even the poor and innocent people can live peacefully and can choose democracy. It's protected time. Can choose democracy because other people are red tagging them or are calling them terrorists, and like they kill them just so they could, for example, they kill them because because of survivability and self-defense mechanism. This is also the reason why we can't make this as a factor or even a metric, for example, for people to outright kill other people, because it is not justified. We do not want a world that is going to be a dystopian or going to a world where history is going to repeat themselves. At this inside OG, at this, what do you get at this inside your OG? This is where we live healthy, where we healthily draw the line, where even if I die with my loved ones and the other boat survives, at least there's cooperation stays. People do not mistrust. They give chances, like the jail and court representation guaranteed to even the convicts. This is where we even like uphold empathy over all else, or even our ethics and morality. This is a better quality of people that we want to uphold in this world, where we can continue fight for what's actually like peace, for example, or actually strive towards what's best for the majority, and even to uphold the marginalized people and save the marginalized people on the ground, right? For all these reasons, never been prouder to govern.
All right, thank you for that fine speech, Deputy Prime Minister. Now to continue the case for opposition side, calling on the Deputy Leader of Opposition. Here, here.
Hello? Hello? Am I audible? Hello?
Kind of echoey.
Can I fix it real quick?
Yeah. Go.
Hello? Is this better or?
I think that's okay. It's not better, but
Okay.
it's fine. I think you can proceed.
Okay, okay. Can I have a minute to set up my notes and time? Okay, hello. I'd like to do shout outs. So I'd like to shout out our debate, Tito Ryan, Tita Jaiza, our entire SBC debate varsity, Princess Alzada, William Go, Tian Tan, Francesca Soriano, Alana, Mateo, Ivanka Bang, yeah, and also Tito Rafi, um,
Ate Adi, your mother.
Ati, thank you. And God for this opportunity, for good weather and good electricity. Yeah, thank you so much. And and also Nestor Arjabal for always in the clutch with always canceling class. So yeah, let me prepare my speech. My name is Sid, pronouns he/him. For my POIs, I like to take it through chat. I mean, voice. So I'd like to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay, I believe the whole government. Okay, the whole government's they're basically their whole arguments is based on how these criminals are able to this actually like by not pressing this button, right? As a victim of this situation, due to the fact that they're terrorists, right? They're saying that we're able to keep our humanity, we keep our moral standards. Not only that, but also magically improve the whole system of poverty. These convicts are able to improve more. How these convicts are able to learn more better by like through the sacrifice. But the fact that also they say like we're basically killing these people, right? Killing these people by actually like pressing this button. We're actually killing all these lots of convicts. But like it also applies in their side due to the fact that like the way they live, right? The whole mechanism with it is basically the whole system, right? This terrorist gave you this opportunity, or basically told you, if you press this button, you kill the convicts, you get to live. If they press this button, they kill you, and they get to live. And if neither press it, they all die, right? In their case, right, they said like by actually like not pressing this button, we're able to have this convicts actually, oh, I feel so much better that they sacrifice themselves, but it's not really a sacrificial, right? In their own words, that this is murder, right? They said murder. So in order to actually live for these convicts, they would in fact have to press the button, which in turn actually disregard the entire message of, oh, we sacrifice for you, but there was no really sacrifice. It was just them pressing the button for survivability. So I believe that whole argument actually falls apart. And also, they can't really like, they keep saying like how if both dies, right? They keep saying like, oh, it's fine that like we'll live with guilt. Like if we actually like press the button, these people, as victims of this situation, are actually able to like live with guilt, right? But like, would you rather have psychological trauma? But that's still curable, right? There's still therapy. There's still lots of measures. Not only that, but there's also like you get to see your kids live, right? But the fact is that you have psychological trauma, you get to live. But in their own stance, there's, oh, I don't have any psychological trauma, but you're not alive either way. And the fact is also that like non-action, the fact that you're choosing to not blow this boat up is an action by itself. You are guilty, in fact, of actually sacrificing your kids. Their whole government is basically saying, let's all hold hands together, hold your kids' hands, look them dead straight in the eye and say, we will sacrifice ourselves for convicts, for these people, right? Like even if they were not convicts, the fact is you are sacrificing your own life, the people you love, right? The people they love, the people, the future of these people, right? So you're sacrificing their future, You're basically your relationship with these people over random people you don't even know. In the authoritarianism also, right? The fact is, we're 50% is either gonna live if one presses the button, right? In this, let's say in the game theory of it, if both doesn't press, 100% of them die. All of them die. If you press, you get. If they press, right? If the convicts press, you die. And if you press, you get to live. The whole situation for them is basically right. Their whole even their best and worst case scenario, government is basically saying you die, your family dies, your loved ones dies, and the innocent people who didn't even want to die have to die due to the fact that you chose this. You're the one who refuses to press the button, which actually shows how selfish you are. You disregard the priorities of these people, the lives that you could have saved, the lives and futures. Like what you said, right? You said oh, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter if they live. There's lots of relationships. There's lots of people that they care about outside of just the boats, right? You said not everybody lives in that area. Yes, we agree with that. The fact is that these people also have people they love in the other boat. Due to the fact, so as the person itself, we would press the button due to the fact that this actually benefits us more in using the utilitarianism method. Sorry. So I also like to move on also how they were also saying I believe the whole argument also saying oh, with this right, this disintegration of basically saying oh, it's justification of survivability, but we're not trying to say, right, this is a 1 in a billion terrorist kill, but this is not something you see every day, right? It's not they're basically framing it as a way oh, it's killing poor people for the sake of for your own benefit. But this is not murder. This is self-defense. Self-defense is something that you do not, something you are forced to do. Murder is something inherently something you choose to do maliciously. This is not something maliciously you do. But the fact is, these terrorists have pointed a gun in your head and the people you love. So is this murder? No, it is self-defense. To the fact that you are coerced to do this. There is no there is no other option. This is the option of pressing the button in order for you to live. The fact is that they're saying how this is actually will cultivate or actually a slippery slope on how this might turn oh, people are just saying oh, I was just trying to survive, so I'll kill was it Israel or Iraq. Basta for the wars. They're saying oh, for survivability we'll kill the wars. But it's not. In fact, you're just a daily citizen. Not only that, but also they assume that these people are actually able to also benefit the system, right? They'll say oh, by not killing these people, people will be more inspired. But honestly, the news will probably coverage on how terrorists hijack people and people are dead. They're not gonna coverage oh, these people were these people were noble with it. They let themselves die, and also due to the fact that they're also assuming that this is a noble talk, right? This is a high stakes situation when there is no talking. These are boats, right? You're not able to negotiate people. You don't know how they are like. You don't know anything. You just know they are convicts, right? You don't know if they're guilty or if they're innocent. But due to the fact that you already know that you have to ensure that these kids, right? These kids, your kids, your loved ones are safe. You have to press the button. I believe that the fact is, this is the most non-selfish choice. No, and this is the most non-selfish choice due to the fact that you'd rather take up the mantle of the guilt of killing these people, right? Killing these convicts in order to ensure that innocent people around you get to live, ensuring your kids, ensuring your parents, ensuring the one you love are able to move on with their lives. You are taking in all the burden, or the burden that can still be later on helped. Also, now I would like to weigh on how we're able to win this debate. I believe we're also able to deconstruct the whole arguments of Gov and how they were able, how unrealistic it is, and how how hopeful it is, and not really truly showing what the stakes are. And not only that, I'd like to also say how we're also able to talk more on how this is the morally right choice. This is not something that also this is something that is is actually sorry. This is something morally right? This is something morally right, and how this is actually benefits more towards your goals as it saves more lives and more innocent lives and I'm proud to oppose.
All right, thank you for that fine speech, DLO. Now to
utilitarian analysis on OO won't hold not kill anyone because they're not guilty in the first place. But then secondly, this is good because you honor means then on extents, since I am a common person, I understand them, I have empathy, I would want them to change. After prison, they get to live a life with with their families that they ought to have. They get to live the life that you are living, for example. So you also allow the innocents to live at the very end of the day. I think then on gravity, we already win over OG and over OO. Lastly on delineation, what happens when you live and not detonate it? Again, you are a common people. You aren't used to killing, meaning you can't live properly when you kill these all other people. This is true, and this is true coming from OG. But let's extend it far more better and extends. Firstly, you will die. You will die depressed because you can't, for example, hold this blame. And secondly, you blame yourself over and over again. You cannot do all the things you ought to do on your life. For example, what does this mean? Even if it's true that on OO that you get to survive, it doesn't fucking matter because you will die depressed. You cannot do anything for your life because you're so depressed at the very end of the game. OG hasn't proved why it's okay for you to die just to prevent guilt. Maybe you still want to see your family even if you get to be guilty. It's true on OO that maybe you get to live properly even if you have this guilt because maybe your family will still support you at the very end of the day. But notice on our side, it's far more better. Why? Because we still have closure. Why is this true? Because you will give them a lot of time before midnight, before you even detonate the bomb. Meaning, before death, you already are satisfied with your achievements, with your life, because you already talked to your loved ones that family, let's kill ourselves for these people, and we don't have the power to kill them because we're just common people at the very end of the day. So it's meaning then we already mitigate the guilt that I have killed my family. But then lastly, what happens to the family outside of this boat? Because notice, this is something that the common people will most likely want to care about. Why? Because it's their family, they love them. One, the other families of criminals that you killed will kill yours. Why? Because you killed them at the very end of the day. It means then you don't protect them after this experiment. You will be killed. You will be tortured because they think that you killed their families. That's so sad. But then secondly, the attitudes of other people towards your family will be so bad. Why? Because you are the representative in that boat as their families, for example. It means then if you kill them as part of Ranao family, it means then that they'll think that Ranao family is bad. So the treatment towards them will be so bad. But then lastly, the government may give benefits towards them if you don't kill these criminals. Why? Because notice, the government will understand that common people are good. It means then when they think that you are good and your family is good as because you are like them, maybe there will be more legal benefits for your family, specifically to the marginalized people. Meaning there will be lesser curfews, for example, as common people because they think that they are not the same with convicts. But I have a very fruitful, for example, rebuttal towards OO and CO. I only have one rebuttal. The other people they said that other people in the boat have lives. You are too selfish if you don't press the button. Come on, if they really want to leave, they should press the button. What we are fighting for is the guilt, and other pragmatic problems will happen if you yourself are the one that presses it. If that's what you are fighting for, let these other people press it. They are the one that's gonna be blamed and not you. This is an actor emotion. You care about yourself, you care about your family. Lastly, you care about all other people that has experienced the problems that you have experienced in your life at the very end of the day. With all of those reasons, thank you.
All right, thank you for that fine speech, member of government. I just like to remind everyone to please watch out for your language. There might be minors inside the room. All right, calling on the member of opposition. Here.
Ate Frances, Kuya Den, Ate Sid, anyone. Okay, anyone. And also everyone in this room, you guys are really cool people. Okay. Whew. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Self-preservation.
that fine speech member of opposition not to crystallize the debate for government side, calling on the government whip. Here, here.
Hello, everyone. Before I start, can I just have a minute because it's so maingay here. Hello, everyone. My name is Muhammad Ryan Ali. He, him. Before I start, can I confirm muna if I'm clear?
Yes, loud and clear.
Thank you very much. Before I start, I would like to give like shout outs. Firstly, shout out to Chate. Nakita ko comments mo, to my partner Ranao, to the entire Tribunes, to the entire, to Amen also, and to every people in the world, yun na lang. Starting my speech in, anyway, shout out to Allah, chares. Starting, and also to Ate Adi for giving us this opportunity. Starting my speech in three, two, starting my speech in 3, 2, 1, go. Killings or murder will never be justified or in the context of this debate, the only way for it to be justified is for the entirety of the opposition to actually prove why is it something that's gonna be justified at the end of the day. But notice how the only thing that he told us is it's justified because of utilitarianism, and I'm gonna be destroying that later. But few points of clarification. One, we need to understand that these people that are within there are actually rational. This family are not stupid, meaning then they're still rational and they can still think that, oh, they can still think or they can logicalize what is happening within that current situation that they are in. But then secondly, this is where I tell you that since they are rational, they can logicalize and even ask that why are there convicts out there in the very beginning, and why are we, morally, why we have, this moral obligation to actually kill them. But then third, you need to understand that these citizens are just ordinary people, meaning they're not used into this type of thing. These ordinary people maybe have done things that has, that has contributed to thing, or like has done a lot of things that they could actually do at the end of the day. But firstly is we need to understand what does this convicts looks like. These convicts are just people deprived of liberty, meaning then that these people are just convicted by law, or just imprisoned by law, or like punished by law because of, because of certain problems and other thing. Meaning then that there could be an existing matter, or there could be something that could actually be put in that these people are just victims of circumstances, or just victims of our fucked up system coming exactly from the OG. But why are we better in OG as early as this part of my speech? Notice how the opening government overburdens these ordinary people. They overburdens them to be some sort of people, or some sort of they pressure them to be a superhero like Batman or like Superman that could actually entirely make a change. Panel, notice how even Miss Universe could not really make a change at all. Why these ordinary people could create changes as opposed to what they're trying to say. This is where we tell you that at the end of the day, this is an actor motion, so it should be nuanced on what should be the best side, for this actor. No, the only case, this is where I directly go into the best case of the, this is where I bite the best case of the entire opposition, that they told us that this murder or this killing is precisely justified because in the name of utilitarianism. I have one thing, I have two levels of response. Firstly, then, in the first level, we tell you that killing them could result to permanent marks to this family. Meaning then that if you're just gonna do it, this could also damage this family. That could create more damage or more casualties. Meaning, their utilitarianism thing is diminished as early as in this part. But even if you don't believe this, in the second level, we tell you that it's precisely symmetrical because it will only be that utilitarianism thing will only be symmetrical, will only be exclusive in opposition if they were able to prove to us or give us an assurance that these convicts would not do it anyway or would not kill these people. Meaning then that this matter of utilitarianism that they're trying to say is symmetrical in both sides. Meaning that the main battle cry of the entire opposition, the opening opposition as well as the closing opposition, since they're just a rehash of their opening, is now neutralized. Firstly, then, is that on the case coming from the government, we extended their case on where do we maintain human nature. This is the first level of elevation. That one, the actor has his family. Notice how the actor have his family in the boat and most likely given time to give closure. This is where we tell you that the moment that we would not allow it, there are existing media that could actually expand this, and that these convicts are now most likely not gonna die at all, or not gonna die at all, or have their own, have their own retribution or actualization at all. That's how you get better human nature, or like maintaining this some sort of human nature thing that came out of the opening government. But the secondly then is that we need to understand that there could be existing outside interference coming exactly from a member. Meaning then that the fact that such thing is actually existing in the very beginning, there could be a reason why people are actually there in the very beginning. Meaning that in our side, we want them to be rational. We want them to think that, oh, you can still do something, or you can still do something, because there's at the end of the day, those are convictees, and at the end of the day, those are convictees, and they are still under, they are still under surveillance by the government. So there could be an outside interference at all. We think then that we tell you that it's better in our side. Secondly then is on the case on the clarification on why these people are ordinary. This is my second level of elevation. That one, these are ordinary people, and that they're not used into this type of thing. Since they're not used into this killing and other things, they could cause trauma, they could cause a lot of things, impacts in psychological impacts that could be irreversible at all. Meaning then that there could actually existing problems. Secondly, they're ordinary people, and that they know that these convicts are still victims of circumstances, or could be victims of circumstances, and has family out there that are waiting for them. Meaning it is best for this one not to do anything, because at the end of the day, both sides has to conclude that if you do not do anything, or if you just stop there, there is still a chance that there's still a chance that both of them will not gonna die at the end of the day. In comparative, then. Noting in comparative in opposition, they did not do anything even if you did not do anything, even if you can do something. Meaning you can still do something, but you do not do it. This could be more guilty for you personally, and could result to a backlash. That's the prerequisite for our case for backlash. What happens then after the detonation surva ek? In government, we tell you that one, there is no assurance that both of them will die at the end of the day. Secondly, utilitarianism is better catered in our house. Meaning then that the utilitarianism case will not exist. Meaning the justification is do not matter. In opposition, criminals will die. There is no retribution. There is no closure to their family. As opposed in our side, the families could still have closure at the end of the day. On the case of guilt, they told us that people will understand at the end of the day. But no, this is about you feeling guilty or having a psychological trauma. Lastly then is on extent. One is publicity of this is better. This is where we're able to co-opt anything coming from our opening. Secondly, we better cater to the criminal justice system. Lastly then is on utilitarianism. That is literally the main battle cry of the opposition, and it is even better catered and proven in our side. With all those reasons, thank you.
Thank you for that fine speech, Government Whip. Now to crystallize the debate for closing opposition, calling on the opposition whip. Here.
Here, here. And you people are really cool, and congratulations, you made it to the finals. Good job, guys. Thank you so much. My name is Sophia. POI preference, preferably at the fifth mark or
Thanks for the round.
Order.
Where are we going to deliberate? I think we can do it in a breakout room, or we can enter the squared room 1.
You guys can do it on Discord.
All right.
who are struggling between the system